everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about all that you need to know about Frisket. You'll see Frisket in a couple different examples of my artwork, especially if you follow me. Just hold them up so you can kind of get a look. But basically any of these areas that are white or inset a little bit more, I accomplished using Frisket. So I get a lot of questions about my process. I have tons of time-lapse videos on those if you'd like to watch, also step-by-step videos. But I basically wanted to do a really simple overview of what Frisket is and how to use it in its most basic kind of form and sense. So Frisket is also known as liquid masking film or liquid Frisket. And basically it's a latex-based product that allows you to block out small areas and fine lines that kind of like repels the paint, so it will either show the paper or the color underneath. So there's a couple different ways that you can apply Frisket. My favorite way is using a color shaper. These are kind of different silicone brush pointed tools that can very easily be cleaned. They come in a variety of different shapes and also sizes. You can also get them in chisels. These are the best because they're not going to be ruined. You can always clean them off. So although they're a little bit more of an upfront investment, in the long term these are going to be much nicer. They're going to hold their point a lot better than something like a brush. Frisket pretty much ruins your brush, so if you're going to use a brush, be sure to use an old one. I've also seen people use popsicle sticks, wooden skewers, all sorts of different stuff. So basically, Frisket can come in a lot of different brands. The Talens liquid masking film is my favorite. And I wanted to just kind of like show you guys a couple different ways that you can apply it. Now, like I said, you can apply it with your brush. Just keep in mind that it may be ruined once you're done with applying your Frisket. Even if you brush it directly afterwards, it really is kind of destructive stuff. And then of course the color shapers. So these allow you to do a much more kind of detailed fine line. I use these for the majority of my works when applying Frisket. Now, like I said, varying from brand to brand, the Frisket is going to be a little different. I also wanted to show you guys the Pebeo Drawing Gum, which is just another word for Frisket. They really like to call it a whole bunch of different things. This is going to be blue in color. So basically the reason they do that is just to let you know where you've already applied your Frisket. I kind of personally like the gray a little bit better, just in case if the Frisket does stain my watercolor paper before I have the chance to pick it up. It's not going to be blue, it's going to be gray, which will probably fit in a little bit better with my art style. But these are both really great Friskets. And then, of course, whenever you're done using your silicone shapers, I did want to show you, you can see how it's kind of gathering up on the ferrule right here. You can just take a rag and clean it right off and it's ready to go. So if you're interested in Frisket, I highly recommend checking out these color shapers as well. Alright, so now that our Frisket is pretty dry, you'll see that when your Frisket is like pooled a little bit more in the center with a lighter color, it may still be a little bit wet. So of course, if you were going to do an illustration, be sure to let yours thoroughly dry. But once it's dry to the touch, you should be ready to go. And basically, what we're gonna do is just take a watercolor brush and a little bit of watercolor and paint right over top of it. So that Frisket is going to repel wherever we're putting the watercolor down. You'll see that you can build it up pretty thick. And you can also use a good amount of water for this as well. now that the Frisket is completely dry, it's not going to at all harm our brush that we're using. So don't be afraid of your brush getting hurt in the process. But patience is definitely something that you have to use when you're using Frisket, because you pretty much have to make sure that your paint is dry before you remove the Frisket, and you have to make sure and wait that the Frisket is dry before you paint. So you'll see already, especially in the area where we brushed it on, how the Frisket is repelling that paint, and hopefully it's keeping that paper underneath pretty dry. So this is just with watercolor on top, but I did also want to show you guys just how resistant the Frisket is. You can also use it with other wet mediums, such as liquid acrylic. You can also use it with gouache. Pretty much anything that can be applied in the fluid form. It may work for things like pastels, colored pencils, etc. However, if you're too abrasive with applying it over top of the Frisket, you may run into some issues, because that Frisket needs to be firmly mounted on the paper. You don't want anything sharp or dry to kind of interact with that. So I'm just gonna apply some of this liquid acrylic. And just in case if you're curious, I'm using Rembrandt watercolors and then the Amsterdam liquid acrylics. So we're gonna go ahead and let this dry really well, and then I will come back and show you guys how to remove it. So when it comes to removing Frisket, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can actually just use your fingertip to kind of roll over top of the Frisket. However, it does take a little bit more pressure, a little bit more work, and especially if you have things like acrylic ink mixed in that are a little bit thicker than watercolor, you'll probably want to get yourself one of these. This is called a pickup eraser, and you can actually just use this to roll right over top of that Frisket. And as you can see, it kind of peels it up. It is latex, so once you get it started, especially if you have some larger areas, you can actually just grab it and kind of peel it up. So you can be a little bit aggressive when you're taking it off. You'll just want to make sure that if you're going to rub really hard on your paper with your pickup eraser, that the pigment underneath is completely dry. And you'll find that after a while of using one of these, they tend to get pretty dirty. But I've had one for about 5 years and it still works fine. So if you are looking to do large areas of precise covering, you can also use something called Frisket film. And it's actually kind of like a plastic sheet that's normally transparent, and you can cut out the shape with your scissors, and then it has a tacky side on it that you can press down onto your watercolor paper. But for doing stuff that's a little bit more organic looking, I think that Frisket works pretty well. You'll see that there's like a little bit of smudging on some of the whiter areas here. That's from me not waiting long enough and my watercolor being a little bit wet still. And as I removed my Frisket, it actually contaminated that watercolor paper. So be sure to let yours dry all the way when you're applying it to your own artwork. So that is pretty much all you need to know about Frisket. Thanks so much for watching, and please let me know in the comments if you have ever tried Frisket before, and what you think about it. So thanks again for watching, and have a great day, guys.